Okay, so the break is over. We will have plenty more breaks during the day. I would like to remind you again about tonight's gathering. There will not be any karaoke tonight, unfortunately. It's going to be a live music band playing, but maybe you can sing along. It's at the Blues House Riga at 8 o'clock. Come by, drinks, food is on us. And yeah, the program moves on now, and we have a fireside chat between moderated by Jovita, ambassador of our tech part of the Moderator Gaming and Tech Summit. So, Jovita, you can start.
Hi everyone, I'm glad this is working. So, hi to those to whom I didn't say hello yet. I'm very glad to have Katri Delimonge on this fireside chat. We're gonna speak on the most important topic of this conference. I dare to say that. Because we covered the topics of technology, we covered the topics of regulation, but all of that will not work without people. So this chat is going to be about people, how to deal with the people, how to manage people, how to lead people, how to speak with people. So I find this conversation very important. And I think for the sake of introduction, Katri, you could say a few words what you do and why you do it.
Fantastic, thank you so much, Jovita. First of all, great job with my name. I'm used to a good child always having different versions, so you caught it perfectly. First of all, I'm truly privileged and humbled to be here today. What's the best way to spend a Wednesday to talk and share something that you're truly passionate about? So, without going into the details on what you can get in social channels, but I just go into a little bit with a different angle. I was on my way here, and whilst you're stuck in the roadworks and everything, what you do, you have an amazing, insightful conversation with the taxi driver. And actually, during that conversation on my way here, I realized I'm living such a rich life. And that's kind
of... We all do, I think, here.
Absolutely. So, what's my idea of the rich life I'm living? First of all, what I realized is that I am so lucky because my life is packed with so many different roles. So if someone asks who I am, I define myself as a human, as a woman, as a wife, as a mum, as a daughter, as a friend, and as a professional, exactly in the same order. But what I've done so far is I've actually made it so that all these roles complement each other beautifully. It's been kind of like a journey to get there as well, but that's a story for another time. And secondly, I get to wake up every morning to my big, mighty why. So basically, I don't do any more in my life when I talk about having a job or work. I'm actually on a mission, making the world a better place. So every day actually having the opportunity to do that, small steps, big steps, is something that actually gets me out of the bed. But background-wise, being trying out and sort of like familiarizing myself with very different kind of businesses. Once upon a time listed companies, also corporations, realized that we're not a match made in professional heaven, and that's fine, which means that for the past decade and a bit more, I've been very active in everything tech, fintech, and also iGaming. And what's usually happening, I'm getting invited into the organization where they just say, Katri, let's build a unicorn. Oh, beg my pardon, nobody's building unicorns anymore, at least in Estonia, we're building multicorns. So basically I'm starting the journey with the startup stage, or then at least the scale-up stage, and start building that from the scratch.
So basically, if you have an amazing idea how to get $1 million or $1 billion, you still probably gonna need some people. You might have tech idea, but you're gonna need some people. You will have to talk with them. And if you are a leader of a company, you might have some problems with leading those people. I know there are a lot of discussion now about various generations, leadership styles. It's plenty of everything. But somehow it doesn't seem to work that well as it could, because we have all this possible information and many things are still not working. So me and Katri, we do believe in personal experiences and personal stories that can help you. So I think, Katri, my question about leadership, I think let's have this part on leadership. What would be your leadership advice leading in tech companies? Are there any specifics Is there no specifics? What are the biggest mistakes can be done? So can you have a few words about leading in tech companies, about developing people in tech companies, some insights on that?
Actually, today I've come to the realization that, people are people. Yes, there are ways of work and processes and decision making and all these sorts of things, and that's sort of like defining the company's way of working from a different angle. But people, their motivations, their engagement, their whys, that still comes down to their individual sort of like who they are and what drives them. But I have had so many blunders in my life. Today I can sit here and actually celebrate them. But one of them, which I'm happy to share from a leadership perspective, is I'm taking you back like quite a few decades when I...
How many decades back?
You'll figure out my age. Let's agree on this one. So I was at the beginning of my leadership journey, and I realized when I actually learned that assumption really is the mother of all the bad things. So what happened was, like, I just stepped into a leadership position, and I had learned all those coaching skills, one-to-ones, stay talks, and I had all these tools. Sitting down with one of my team members, we had a little practice. We always discussed on a scale of 1 to 10 how happy they are. And they every time came to the meeting, they said they're 7. And I was like, okay, 7, that's kind of crappy. Well, at least for me, I'm capable of being a 10. There must be something wrong. So I didn't really start talking to them about that. What I started doing at that time, I started fixing that 7. There's no way someone can thrive and be happy and, 7. So over the course of time, we looked at the salary, the development needs, and all these kind of things. And we kept having these one-to-ones. And every time we got out the scale, they still kept saying 7. I was getting super frustrated. Like where I'm going wrong. And then one day, I just couldn't hold it anymore. I was just sitting there and I'm like, why this 7? Like what's wrong? Where I'm going wrong? How can I, get it differently? And they just look at me with the biggest smile on their face and they just say, but 7 is my 10. And that was basically super eye-opening because people are so different. That the way our assumptions are going, they're so subjective. So basically what I learned is saying goodbye to assumptions and actually being curious by asking powerful questions.
Actually, that's very interesting because we didn't discuss that part. Actually, what you hear is happening spontaneously. So I was one of the people in a law firm who actually got rid of giving numbers to your day, mood, etc. I joined the current law firm from another one, and I had my experiences, and I, would attend the meetings where people would be giving numbers, as you said, and I was initially, oh my God, what are they doing? Why they are putting numbers, on management tips on your day, etc., and people kept giving, the same numbers probably related to their personality, and exactly the boss, would be telling but it was this and that, maybe it's, 10, it was, targeted not for 9 but for 10, and then actually I was the one to raise a hand and say, well, this is not gonna work, this is people, this is not machines, you cannot, put an algorithm on everything, and please even don't look for that. And all these KPIs, they of course can work, all these motivation systems, they can be tailor-made to motivate the people you like, but it's not just gonna work like that. So basically, probably it's a topic for longer conversation and maybe for the HR conference, and we will not go into that much detail, but I totally support your idea, and I think it goes down to the general culture in the organization, which probably, as you say, is born the day when the idea of a business is born, because the people have an idea how they want to have their business, and even if they cannot articulate, they probably have an idea what kind of colleagues they want, what kind of people they want. So how do you manage, that translation in between of the businessman and the talent, in the market that is very welcome to the businesses? How do you translate that wish of entrepreneur to the people that would be glad to join?
First of all, that organizational culture is the DNA of the organization. It's always unique. So there are 2 aspects to keep in mind. Whenever you are establishing your DNA, and as a people person, I really suggest to do it as soon as possible, whether you're already thinking of the startup, business, people business, or when you start scaling up, right? Because when you start thinking of growing your revenue, going to new markets, expansion of customer base, your culture is going to scale with you. And sometimes culture can just happen, but on a longer term, it is definitely very wise to save yourself a few headaches when you start growing. So what I'm trying to say is, first of all, when you're putting this DNA into place and putting all these beautiful bells and whistles and slogans on your website, make sure you walk the talk. That is in talent acquisition, when you actually start recruiting the right kind of people, thinking not just the skills and competencies, but looking at the human. And I'm today not talking only about culture fit. Culture fit is actually the term. It's like, okay, we're sharing the values, but we're sort of like same, kind of same. But the other angle to that is culture add. So how can you get people into the organization who are sharing the values, but who bring some new, different kind of complements or perspectives on the table as well. So that's for one, define what's your human looking like. What kind of values they have.
Can I challenge you a bit? Because if you would go to the many websites or advertising of the companies, to me sometimes they look all the same. They would say, they value talent, they give you flexibility, because now is everyone about the flexibility. So basically everyone seems, to suggesting the same things. So how do you figure out what is really happening, what is just advertising, which is looking, how to get the hearts of young people? So how do you nail it?
Mm-hmm. Well, you actually experience it from the moment you get into the organization, right? But you can get already the feel from what you see, for example, how people speak about the organization. The world is such a small village, verbal branding, what's actually put out there. Talent acquisition process, recruitment, how's that happening? What kind of questions are being focused on? What's being asked? Who are the people you're meeting? How they're talking about their organization, the people around there, So, and also how they answer your questions. It works both ways, because it's not just the employer choosing the person, it's a partnership, right? So, and that's why it's super important to nail it already in the beginning, who's your kind of human? What does it look like? Actually, I usually go into organizations and we sometimes even draw stick figures, on the wall, and we brainstorm together, and every time there is a competence or a skill or a personality trait or value, I always say, why is that? And define exactly what does it look like? Because it can be very subjective meaning to different kind of people.
Actually, yes, I just, just a short insight. I remember having a training, in the law firms they do have many various trainings. I believe you attended also, plenty of them. And we were asked to define quality. It was a room of 15 people, well educated, who can articulate what they think. And just imagine they were, and we, were put in peers of 4 people, and we couldn't find a single word sometimes that would match in definition of quality. That's it seems, like a joke, but you can try that at home. You sit with your, spouse, you might sit with your mom and try to write down what quality means for you. And for some people it might mean coming back on time. To some people it might mean something expensive. To someone, quality might mean something totally different. So I know that I speak, in a very loyally terms, you need to get on definition first, but actually you do have to translate to the people, what do you mean by what do you mean? Because what you say not necessarily is heard by the people the same way you just said. So basically, how do you articulate? Maybe one question. So how do you translate, from your heart to someone else's heart?
Mm-hmm. The easiest way is walking the talk. I believe in behaviors. When you actually recognize and report the behaviors, for example, I saw someone doing these kind of things. This is actually living the value. That's why the people are being promoted. That's why the people are being taken on board. And sometimes that's why we also say goodbye to each other, because certain alignment in the behaviors is not happening. And that's happening on a daily basis. That's not something like, let's get together once in a while and talk about that. No, it's actually being observant, looking around, listening, noticing, and talking about
That's good to know. So basically believing in actions. And now, very popular question, sorry if it's boring, but it's spoken a lot. So what the young talent wants now? So what's trending? I probably, we all are from the business side, so I presume that the business wants, engagement, the business wants, professionality, wants talent, wants passion, etc., etc. So what does, the talent wants, and how to make this perfect match?
There's actually a really good report out there by McKinsey. I think it was, it's a little less than a year old, but still I think really relevant. Although, everyone has been talking about the great resignation, the quiet quitting. Now we're talking about the great renegotiation, which means that that the landscape of talent acquisition and recruitment and workforce has actually changed drastically. The way people work, their expectations and their motivators. So before the COVID time, the majority of the workforce was traditionalists. Traditionalist is someone who's sort of like in the late 20s, in their middle 40s, and they are very driven by their career. And tangible kind of rewards, promotions. They do value work-life balance, but they're open to do any trade-offs to aspire in their career steps. Now that part of the workforce has actually drastically shrunk. That's actually below than half of the needs of
Sometimes
people.
It seems that only management is still there.
I think traditionalists are in the management, definitely. There's a majority in there. But now there is a different kind of personas that have appeared. There is, for example, relaxers. These are people who are not putting work first anymore. Actually, work has to fit their life, not vice versa. There are caregivers, people who have given up job to take care of their children, their elders, or their own well-being. So again, the job has to fit in their lifestyle. There are idealists who are students and sort of Z generation people, so they are having their needs there as well. And they're do-it-yourself. People who are more left their jobs, now being entrepreneurs, gig economy enhancers, temporary workers, and this like that. But what's the common denominator? I eliminate traditionalists, I already spoke about that. But what's come out from that is, of course, number one amongst that was the flexibility in the workplace. It's very output driven. It's not where I sit or how many hours I put in, it's actually what I deliver. What's the value I add? Then there is also the purpose and meaning. I see it firsthand so much, people wanting to understand how their job, their contribution is actually correlated to the overall success of the business. Then there is also mental health and well-being that drastically changed and sort of moved up in all of the benefits and the perks and expectations during the COVID time. Learning and development, no surprises there. And in the overall workforce, also the adequate pay. But I want to also enhance here something that in tech sector, it's slightly different regarding the pay part. What I'm seeing today, especially working, engineers, data science, all this kind of talents, is their Maslow pyramid is still functioning a little bit differently. They expect the pay sort of something as given. And in the remuneration and compensation packages, despite all the inflation and economic situation, that hasn't really plummeted for them. So in order for them to operate on the level that you expect to deliver the best outcome, they can't think, can I have macaronis or cheese or without cheese tonight? So that is something that they expect anyways to have. So, they need to understand why they're doing their job, and they have other motivations coming from that. But there are two things that I didn't find in McKinsey's one, but what I have experienced myself is social and humane interactions as one of the things that is super important for people today as well. I see it firsthand when I'm talking to different kind of talents and also in a network working with different kind of leaders. How do you nurture in your organization the social relationships, the humane collaborations? Obviously, people becoming so isolated in their way of working as well, that has increased drastically. And last but not least, which I've also witnessed firsthand during the last year and a bit more, is people asking for safety. sort of like in
what sense you mean safety? Is it pay or is it something else?
No, and that is sort of like the interesting aspect from that. Safety in the routine that they're coming to the work when the rest of the world is sort of like going crazy a little bit and sometimes feel like collapsing. It's having this. It sounds a bit like escapism sometimes, but coming to work but having this safe routine. Even when you're innovating, which is very paradoxical when you put this like safe innovation together in that sense. But they're asking for stability in the way the work is happening or the way routines are being carried out. And that's a new one. I've never seen that before.
Actually, I'm a great supporter of your ideas. I can, say that I witnessed that by myself. And here when speaking that the pay should depend on your engagement and results, I see one, so to say, danger. I don't know how much this applies to tech industries, but I can share some insights, because there are quite a lot of lawyers in here. There is work which is, so to say, unpromotable sometimes, and there is that part of work in the organization that no one wants to see sometimes, because everyone wants to see, the work that gives results, the work that gives promotions, and somewhere, behind the scenes there is hidden, sometimes workload, which no one wants to do. And I now work in a law firm which has a very rare example, having the, lean philosophy behind, meaning that instead of like personnel of 40 extra people who would be non-lawyers, but doing just, paperwork and helping, there are 3 or 4. So just imagine, that's very lean, that's very efficient to clients, we are very competitive in this way, so for clients it's a paradise. But I'm serious by saying that, and we have a huge competitive advantage in the market because of that. And our law firm has grown in 4 years, like to the top, like 4 law firms in the Baltics. And it could be done applying technologies, applying efficiency, applying lean, philosophy for the law firm, which traditionally was like more techie philosophy. But looking at the people, there is, there are some trade-offs which the time are, growing. There are these parts of the jobs like which do not seem to be promotable, and if you do not hire, a lot of secretaries for which the clients would have to pay before. So that work has to go somewhere, on students, on younger lawyers, somewhere, and no one wants to do that. So how do you keep them motivated? Because this generation will not say that, okay, I'll work, behind the scenes for 10 years until you let me, go out to the conference. Mm-hmm. So I'm seeing that all the very techy solutions, which gives, a blast of efficiency, they do not give a satisfaction. Like even from myself, I remember I began a career as a lawyer where I would have to go to the post with the papers, before 12 o'clock if you, filed, if you wrote, a claim, so or a response, you go to post before it's closing, and you have this nice walk to the post. And actually it is relaxing because you're still at work, you're doing something of value, but you're having a walk. And now it's super efficient. At the conference, I can, send 10 emails, I can answer the calls, etc., and all the nice, works are gone. And this social connection, these coffee machines and these small talks might be the most motivated things, but they also go to the extreme because I know some unicorn companies where they would have beer. So, this also can go to the extreme.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Obviously, being a huge ambassador of finding good ways to automate, I still believe that there are things that are not only best done, but can be done by humans. So it's finding the healthy balance between these, where the human interaction has to happen in order to deliver that expected outcome.
Okay, so if you could give one advice, for the manager speaking to the talent, so what would you say? I mean, let's say, you're a leader and someone young comes to your office. It's a day 1. So what do you tell them?
Oh gosh, we didn't speak about that.
I know, sorry.
They have got acquainted already and all these kind of things. I think the day 1 is more actually integrating the person. It's such a scary thing to be the new kid on the block anyways. Everyone looking, getting used to you, you're like sort of like in the middle of anything. I think as a leader on day 1, all you can really do is de-stress them as much as possible, and not just put already all the workload and all these kind of things in there. Take your time. It's a day, a couple of days. I see sometimes these really insane onboarding, programs, and you see that poor person after 2 weeks, they're walking along like they're dead. They're just like being put through all these interviews, talks, meetings, and stuff like that. Let them actually build the relationships, get to know the people in the organization, learn about the business and the systems, and be a support function rather than someone who's dictating what to do, but actually empowering them to take the ownership.
Okay, good to know that. And you mentioned development. You said that development is something everyone wants, the growth, etc., etc. So, what do you think is the most common barrier to development, of people to developing like yourself as a leader? What are the barriers out here?
I think very often it drills down to who owns the development. I'm talking sometimes to leaders and they're like, should I tell them that they should go to the course? And then the people are waiting, like, should someone send me to the course? Or, who's actually owning that? I am a firm believer and practitioner that everyone owns their own development. So I know best what I need in order to be the best version of myself. But obviously having these conversations with my direct lead, aligning the goals, how I can add value, and hopefully get also the support, in these trainings being happening, that's a collaboration. But the initiative, I believe, should be coming from the people themselves. I want to learn, I want to grow, I want to develop. And the lead is sort of like, how can I support you getting there?
Have you spotted sometimes that more talented people would not go there, to get things, and someone like who's just brave enough would just go and say?
Absolutely, all the time.
All of the time, okay. So we are, coming also a trendy topic of the imposter syndrome. So what's advice, what's your take on this?
I'm actually working with a lot of leaders as well. So it's actually coming from the leadership, like the talks as well, how you're leading the people, how you're actually reminding them who owns what's their freedom to do, what's their autonomy, what they can drive. And even during these talks, sometimes saying, if there's something that you want to develop, you wanted to grow in that area, let me know how I can support you. I'm here to do that. Sometimes asking even these questions already sets the foundation for the person to actually start talking about that, rather than coming and knocking on the door themselves.
Do you have time for that? Because I've heard, like busy managers say, oh my God, I don't have time, for these kids' play, to develop the people. I just need to get the work done because we are so busy out here. It's not about development, it's about getting business done.
Then you should be a manager. Sorry. I mean, you can only be as good as your team are, and development and growth is absolute integral part of that. So otherwise, just do something else.
Okay, that's not a very optimistic note to end up. But we are out of time here. So I think let's finalize it just by a few tips that we all could take out of this chat. So what would be the 3 takeaways, from our chat, which I believe could continue, for an entire week?
Something we didn't manage to actually touch base so much on, but first of all, get comfortable being uncomfortable, especially if you're like a leader. You can be popular as a yes person or neutral as a Switzerland, but you probably don't go very far, it doesn't fly. So, it is absolutely all about doing the right thing, being transparent about that, and justifying that as well in this communication. It's not about being liked, it's about driving by the integrity. So that's for one. Second, I would say embrace the mindset of never being ready. And that's been a journey for myself, because when I grew up as a child, I had then a mission that I wanted to know everything. Well, happened so that I realized I'll never know everything, and today I'm waking up embracing the opportunity that I'll never know everything, because there's all the time something new things to learn, because otherwise it's over. What's the point even to exist? So we are changing with the world. We have such incredible potential, so we should embrace that definitely as well. And last but not least, I didn't manage to say that, but I've got a nickname, I've got a reputation. I'm actually called Katri, and I'm super proud of that. And like the last one, what I want to say, practice kindness. But I want to hear say what kindness means, yeah? It's by no means niceness. It's not like sugarcoating, just talking about the good and ignoring everything the bad and the ugly. Actually, it very much involves also talking about the tough things, the painful things, but it's how you do that, yeah? It's about being respectful, constructive, open, transparent, but always having the mindset, I'm talking to you about that because our collaboration really means a lot to us. You mean a lot to us. So, practice kindness.
Okay, so thank you, Katri, a lot. Actually, Katri, when she met me, you know, out in the corridor, she said, "Hi, can I hug you?" So I believe she's practicing kindness, and it was something supernatural because usually I don't allow strangers to hug me, but somehow it felt very familiar, you know. So let's end up. Thank you so much for the beautiful insights. I mean, I'm taking many of them with myself, and let's end up like with the popular saying that in a world where you can be everything, you can choose to be kind.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.